moment in time, you're currently under arrest for making off without payment. You don't say anything,
but I haven't made off.
We don't mention one question to the little line court. Anything you do is maybe give evidence.
But I haven't made off though.
For your arrest is reported in factual investigation. Okay.
To rate the audits, where we put misconduct on display, explore police and legal content, protect rights, and demand accountability. This episode is brought to us by I Spy Audits. Be sure to check the link below, subscribe to his channel, and give him the credit he deserves. And this episode, Auditor I Spy stops at a BP petrol station to fill up and tries to pay with a £20 coin issued by the Royal Mint, legal tender in the UK. But instead of a simple transaction, staff refuse it, call the police, and what should have been a civil matter becomes something far worse. When the officers arrive, they don't de-escalate, they escalate, arresting I Spy even though no crime had been committed. That reckless decision comes back to haunt them, because I Spy takes it to court and walks away with a massive pay.
It's a £20 coin.
Never seen them in my life.
So it's from the Royal Mint, so the same place that all legal tender comes from.
Have you got any other means of payment at the minute?
I don't know. Right. Can I ask why you didn't tell me before you started recording?
So when we go to any incident, our tour of duty and our police protocol is to video every incident we go to achieve the best evidence.
But you've got to notify the person at the first available opportunity.
No, we don't.
You do.
Have you got that from somewhere? Have you read that up somewhere? Or?
Yes, your policy. Yeah.
Okay. Well, at the minute, we're obviously videoing everything because we've been called to an incident. Immediate response where there's some ongoing issue with payment, whether it's a domestic...
999?
Well, that's what's coming as, yeah.
Well,
we just didn't know what was happening. There was an altercation in the shop, so we've arrived on that instance. Are you going to give me your name?
I'm not, no.
Right, okay. Because is there a reason for that?
Because it's a civil matter, and it's not something that the police can get involved in.
To a degree, you're right. It is a civil matter. We can deal with it a different way, but obviously, ultimately, you haven't paid for your fuel.
From the moment she arrives, the officer shows how unfit she is for the situation. The auditor immediately notices her body cam and asks why she hasn't declared it. Guidance is crystal clear. Officers must inform members of the public that they are recording at the earliest opportunity. Instead of admitting that, she flatly denies the requirement exists. Her next move is just as poor. She presses the auditor for his name, but this isn't a criminal matter. It's a civil disagreement between him and the petrol station. There is no legal basis to demand ID where no offense has been committed. The officer either didn't know this or chose to ignore it, both unacceptable for someone wearing the uniform.
I have.
But they're not accepting that money.
But that's up to them to accept it. If they decline...
They've obviously run the post office and they've declined that. Ultimately, it's a civil issue, but if you're not willing to give us your details, then how do we know that you're going to resolve a civil issue at a later date? If you're happy to give us your details, then we can look at the civil issue at a later date.
But that's a civil issue, that's nothing for the police to get involved in.
But we don't know your details, do we? So you could technically escape from here and never come back and never deal with that issue, then you'd be circulated as wanted for that, won't you, for making off without payment?
That's not a police issue at the minute.
It is.
It is
a police issue because you've not paid for fuel. So there's still an offence there of that you've not paid for your fuel.
But I have paid. I've gave them...
But you've gave them this coin, yeah, which ultimately they've spoke to the post office and they've decided that it's not a reasonable amount of payment for your fuel. So at the minute we're sort of hands are tied, yeah, agree with you on a certain instance of that, but we still need a solution today whether we take your details and we deal with it at a later date.
From her mouth, the officer admits it's a civil dispute, then tries to invent a power to demand ID, so we know you'll resolve it later. That's not how policing works. If there's no suspected offense, there's no power to compel details. She can't flip a private payment disagreement into a police-enforced ID check just because the retailer is unhappy. When she said, you could be circulated as wanted, it was pure bluff. Wanted markers are for criminal matters, suspects, warrants, failures to appear, not civil contract disputes. Threatening a criminal designation to coerce compliance is a misuse of authority and proof she had no lawful footing to begin with. If she genuinely thought a crime might be in play, she had to test the elements. Dishonesty making off intent to avoid payment here, the auditor stayed, tried to pay, and simply disputed the means of payment. Classic civil territory.
So basically, he's trying to pay with this. They've run the post office and said that it doesn't really exist, you can't pay with that. No. He obviously won't give us our details. I've explained to him to a degree it's a civil matter. However, if he does make off and he doesn't give us our details, we're struggling for any sort of civil issue at a later date. Any details and making off without payment, yeah. So I've explained if he does give us his details and we know where he is and we can contact him at a later date, hopefully this issue can get resolved. No. He's obviously not really can't want him to do that at the minute.
Because it's a civil issue and it's nothing for the police to get involved in.
But you're still going to make off, aren't you? Technically without payment, but if we can get your details...
But I have paid.
But you haven't...
And it is their policy to accept the £20 coin.
Have you?
How's it
Has
their
he paid?
policy? No, he hasn't.
Right. If you haven't paid, and if you walk out this door now,
They've still got the money though.
Just let me finish. If you walk out that door now, you are liable for an arrest because we don't have your details.
But you don't need them.
Well, I do
because it's a civil issue.
But it's not, because a make off without payment is then a police matter.
A second officer walks in and instantly makes things worse, jumping straight to threats of arrest. That's absurd. The auditor was still inside, making no attempt to leave, openly disputing the payment. There's no making off without payment because he hadn't left, and certainly no intent to avoid paying. What makes a threat even weaker is the fact the auditor had already tried to pay with a £20 Royal Mint coin that the cashier refused. That alone destroys any idea he was trying to dodge payment. Under the Theft Act, both the act of leaving and the intent to avoid payment must be present. Neither applied here, by twisting the situation into a criminal matter just because she didn't get his details. The officer exposed a total lack of understanding.
So if you walk out that door now, it is. If you walk out that door now, you'll be getting arrested for make off without payment.
But there is an agreement with BP that the coin can be used.
Is there any other way that you can pay? Because we're going to sit here for hours arguing. I've been quite respectful to you. I appreciate you have to a degree, and I appreciate that from yourself. You haven't been argumentative with me, and I appreciate that you've been a normal human being. However, we need
I don't intend to. No,
I appreciate
if you
that.
can pay for the fuel now by other means, then that's fair enough. It'll be the end of the matter.
Or if you can give us your details and we can deal with it at a slower time, we can offer you that. But if you're not willing to do either any, then we're struggling with what we have left to do.
Because we can't let you walk out that door without paying. But
we don't know where you live. You might not even be from around here. I'm not saying you are, but you know what I mean. We have people where they'll make off and then they won't give us our details, and then we're going to struggle. I'm still going to have that £20 of fuel, unfortunately, with this BP garage outstanding.
Which car is it?
But I have paid for the fuel.
But you haven't paid for the fuel. Which one?
Right, we're going round in circles, aren't we?
We are, unfortunately, yeah. We've agreed, we've reasoned with you now, and we've tried to say that if you give us your details, just tell you where you live, we'll deal with it slow time. However, you then leave, you don't have your details, you don't know where you live, you could live in London for all we know, and then there's still this making off without payment because they will not accept this as payment.
But I don't have to identify for a civil issue.
It technically isn't a civil issue though, is it, when you leave and you don't pay? You haven't paid for your fuel. We've got the payment here, which isn't acceptable, so really you haven't paid at the minute.
The entire exchange rests on a false premise. The officers keep warning, if you leave, as though the auditor is about to run off without paying. But that moment never came. He was still in the store, still engaging, and had already tried to pay with a Royal Mint coin. They weren't responding to his actions. They were responding to a scenario they had imagined. That's not law, that's fiction. And the idea that they couldn't confirm who he was without forcing ID is just as weak. His number plate was right outside, a lawful and immediate way to confirm details if they genuinely thought it necessary. Instead, they ignored that option and doubled down on demands they had no power to make, twisting a civil disagreement into grounds for arrest. They weren't solving the problem. They were inflating it.
Well, I have, because I've handed the coin over. Right. So I haven't got that in my possession, and I've contacted BP head office before coming here.
Right, and was that today then, or?
No.
So when was that then? So you've contacted BP head office before you've come in?
Correct.
Right, so was it, did you contact them today, or was it yesterday, or last week, or?
It's not up to me to say that.
How's it money?
Do you understand what the £20 coin is?
No, that's why I'm confused.
Well, why are you threatening me for arrest then, if you don't know?
Because it's not money.
It is.
Right. We'll agree to disagree. At the end
you don't know that. It is. It's legal tender, the same as a £20 note and a £10 note.
Right, and who did you speak to from the BP garage, the manager?
It's a Royal Mint who issued that £20 coin.
Right. Okay.
So it's the same money as any other money.
If you get someone on the phone to me who you've spoken to earlier, then we can kind of end the matter here, can't we?
Well, if it's a civil issue, I don't need to assist you.
But at the minute we don't know it's a civil matter.
But I don't need to assist you in a civil issue.
But you do, because it then turns into a police matter because we don't know that coin.
The auditor had already done more than enough by pointing out BP themselves said the coin was valid. That should have ended it right there. Instead, the officer spins it into a demand, insisting he call BP directly, or else it becomes a police matter. That's absurd. Had no legal duty to assist her in that way, and refusing doesn't magically create a criminal offense. The role of the police is to assess the facts and apply the law, not push the burden onto the citizen to prove himself. Her follow. Upline, we don't know that coin, only makes her position worse. £20 Royal Mint coin is legal tender. If she and her colleagues don't recognize it, that's their problem, not the auditor.
If it's a civil agreement,
risk of being arrested because you haven't given us details, and you're going to walk out that door, and it's technically a failure to pay.
But then it'll be a civil. But then I'll sue you.
Well, that's fine. If you want to sue us, that's fine.
Unlawful arrest.
Like I said, we've been honest with you in terms of which way we can go. The staff here have been very honest. Okay, and all I'm saying is, if you get the person on the phone who you spoke to earlier with the agreement, then that could be the end of the matter. But as far as I do, then technically, if you walk out the door, it's going to be make without payment.
He's already accepted to take it.
You haven't accepted to take it? No, haven't accepted to take it. You walk out that door, becomes a criminal matter, and you get arrested for make off without payment.
You give us your details.
You're refusing to give us your details, and we don't know that that vehicle is yours because you're not.
But I've told you
Is it urgent?
that he said he would take the coin
But he isn't out.
if I take my mask off.
Right, well I wasn't here for that, so we have no witnesses, unfortunately, other than you and him. Right now I can't view that.
Body camera.
But right now I can't view that. At the end of the day, you've come in, you've paid for you've got your fuel, you've come in. This isn't a payable matter. Once you leave, we've offered you to give us your details and deal with it that way. For all I know, that vehicle could register somebody else and lived in London. And how are we ever going to trace you?
But I don't need to assist you.
Situation, it is making off without payment. I can't be any more reasonable with you and give you some sort of options that we can go.
But I don't need to assist you.
Are you offering to give
Because
the
you're
staff,
wrong.
not myself, not my colleague, the staff your name and contact number?
No.
Right, so we have one option, but two will lock you up then.
Well, I've got a civil agreement in the background.
You can
So-
prove that at court.
I've
You
got
can prove that at court.
That's
then.
fine. You can prove that at court.
Right, well, this moment in time, you're currently under arrest for making off without payment. You don't have to say anything,
but I haven't made off.
We don't mention one question to the letter line court. Anything you do is a negative evidence.
But I haven't made off though.
For your arrest is prompted in factual investigation. Okay.
But I haven't made off.
You're under caution as well.
And due to the fact you failed to provide details.
But I haven't made off.
Fails to provide details, yeah.
But I haven't made off.
Right, are we going to go calmly? We're going to go quietly?
We would go calmly all the time.
Okay, well, do you want to walk with us then?
Of course.
Thank you. Just come with me, sir, please. Have you got anything in your pockets that's going to harm me or you? Just take them out. It's just a question we ask everybody.
Can we just take your camera off as well, please?
This is where the whole thing tips from stupidity into outright abuse. The officers arrest the auditor for making off without payment while he's literally standing inside the store saying, "I haven't made off." That one line alone should have ended the whole thing. The offense requires someone to actually leave without paying. He hadn't left. He wasn't trying to leave. Made that clear. Yet they still pushed ahead with the arrest. Legally, it doesn't get more indefensible. The Theft Act requires the act of leaving and the intent to permanently avoid payment. Neither existed here. The auditor had already offered a valid form of payment and was still in the middle of the dispute. The offense, they claimed, simply didn't exist, and they knew it. Now Auditor I Spy gives an update on his claim.
About 10 months ago, I walked out of those gates after being falsely arrested for using a £20 coin. The Chief Constable has paid out £4,000 in compensation, but unfortunately he did not apologise at any point, even taking him to court. He went all the way to court, we had the hearing date, and then the Chief Constable saw some sense and paid £4,000 in compensation, but no apology.
The case was taken to court, and the auditor walked away with a huge £3,999 payout plus legal costs. That's not pocket change. That's a serious sum of money for something that never should have happened in the first place. IT shows just how weak the police's position was once their actions were dragged under legal scrutiny. They knew they couldn't defend it, so they had no choice but to settle. But what makes this even more damning is that according to the auditor, the Chief Constable, the head of the force, never once offered an apology. They handed over thousands of pounds of taxpayer money, acknowledged the wrongdoing with their wallet, but couldn't muster the basic professionalism to admit fault. That silence speaks volumes. IT shows a culture where saving face is more important than accountability, and where public trust is treated as an afterthought. This case is the perfect example of how small situations can spiral into full-blown misconduct when officers don't know the law. They're supposed to uphold a simple civil dispute over a coin, something that never should have involved police, turned into a wrongful arrest because ego and authority replaced common sense. That kind of escalation isn't policing, it's bullying in uniform. Even worse, the officers invented justifications as they went along, repeating, "What if you walk out without paying?" Even though the auditor never indicated he would. They built their entire case around a scenario that existed only in their imagination. That's not enforcing the law, that's twisting reality to create grounds that don't exist. This behavior shows a deeper cultural problem, intimidation being used as a shortcut for policing. Instead of resolving the issue with patience and knowledge, they reached straight for threats, detainment, and eventually arrest. When officers lean on fear instead of facts, the whole public loses. Because if this can happen over a coin, it can happen over anything. And then there's the aftermath. Nearly £4,000 of taxpayer money paid out, yet not even a word of apology from the Chief Constable. That silence isn't just arrogance, it's an admission that they'd rather bury the mistake with cash than confront their failure. IT shows exactly where their priorities lie, protecting the image of the force, not fixing the behavior of its officers. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me continue with my independent coverage. Also, don't forget to check out I Spy Audits. His channel is linked in the description. Show him some love. Thanks for watching. This was Rate the Audit, and I'll see you in the next one.